AI, or artificial intelligence, has really entered the space and kind of jolted a lot of people awake again. So Minnesota's Attorney General just laid out his concerns and his recommendations. He has some ideas for regulating AI specifically for our kids. I wanted to share what he had to say.
Attorney General Keith Ellison, thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, what a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So, some of the things that you outlined in this report were really disturbing to read. Can you give us some examples of some of the things that just really stood out to you?
Well, teens are using generative AI to create fake photos, videos, audio, some of their peers, sometimes to bully them, sometimes creating sexualized images of kids. These Some of these things are explicit. They're very damaging to children. They create anxiety, stress. They create real social pressure and certainly interfere with the kid's ability to grow up and lead a normal life, do sort of school activities and, try to be a successful young person. So that's what we found. And we found that there's a lot of participation. I mean, you know, I'm a parent of four. My kids are now adults, but I can't imagine willingly letting my kids be a guinea pig for big tech companies testing new, powerful, and dangerous technologies. But that's what's happening with AI now, and it's all over social media. And a high percentage of kids, are found using AI powered chatbots, and at least about a quarter of them using these things on a weekly basis. So it's prolific. It can be damaging, and we need to pay attention to it.
Yeah, and when you talk about kids, we're not just talking about 16, 17, 18. I mean, we're
Oh,
talking about
right,
young kids too.
right. We're talking about youngsters.
Yeah, that's one thing that stood out to us for sure as well. It's hard to kind of cut through all the noise because I think for years and years, parents and adults who care about this kind of thing here, this is potentially very damaging, and there's just so much out there. How do we kind of cut through some of that and really give this the attention that it needs?
Well, the first thing is we got to start talking about it. I'm so glad that you have featured this on your show today because hopefully parents will begin to really investigate what their kids are looking, what they're exposed to, really begin those trust relationships where kids can really get their best advocate, their parents, involved in what is happening in their lives. But let me just tell you, there's a lot that we can do. We can regulate in this area. We can hold companies accountable. Right now, I'm suing Meta because we allege that they are presenting addictive design features that harm young people's mental health. And they test these things. They test them just like big tobacco tested cigarettes to addict people, just like others products will test to make sure they're really tapping into your pleasure centers without you even really understanding what's going on. AI is doing this now. Meta's doing this, I allege, and we're holding them accountable. But it can't just be AGs. It's got to be parents and families and kids and schools all coming together to protect kids from what is, in some ways, exciting new technology, and but also can be very harmful. We can do this. I mean, knives are dangerous when used inappropriately, and they're very helpful when used appropriately. And that's really what we're calling for, the appropriate use of AI and to suppress the damaging, unfortunate uses of AI.
How hard will it be to regulate something like AI, which seemingly changes by the minute? A lot of us can't even wrap our brains around, especially parents. We are at a huge disadvantage, not even really understanding what it is or its capabilities. How hard will this be? And what kind of timeline before we start to see real change, do you think?
Well, I believe that we can do it. I mean, how hard will it be? Nothing worth it is ever easy, right? But we can do this thing. And when people in the media are raising this issue up, when folks in government are addressing it, when parents are taking it seriously, when teachers are taking it seriously, when our courts are holding people accountable, we can get it done. And so I believe there's a future in front of us where we use AI in a productive way and we stop it from its more harmful uses. I don't know when that day comes, but I can see that day in our future if we all come together and we work together.
Okay. Um, how how tricky is it to measure the mental health piece of all of this? You know, all of us can look at data and say this many kids are using AI and that kind of thing, but that seems like just it seems like a wild card in all of this.
Well, I mean, we can test whether kids are feeling anxiety, depression. You can measure that, but you can also use anecdotal evidence to give you a sense of what's going on. There was one kid, Floridian kid, who, because of bullying with the use of AI images, committed suicide. So that's a measurement of one, but for that family, it's devastating. But we have seen improper use of AI cause, lead kids to bulimia, anorexia. We've seen really unhealthy challenges go forward on online get used. I mean, the reality is that this can be an exciting, helpful, useful technology, but it can also be the opposite. And so, social media platforms, some of them are designed to addict and to maximize time spent on the platform. And this is a problem. I mean, if your whole design focus is to keep people's attention on what you're doing, because no matter how titillating it is, and you're going to use those images, even if they're harmful, as long as you got eyeballs on the screen, you feel that you're successful. This is another measure of how things can be really harmful too. So, there are ways to measure it. Psychologists are doing it every day. We have anecdotes on how harmful it can be, but we feel very confident that we can prove our case in court that it's harmful. And I think most people will agree that there's an unhealthy amount of time being spent with these things. But it's not because the kids just love computers so much. The algorithm is designed to hook their attention and be addictive.
If I could, that reminds me, I should have you explain to us sort of these terms that we're talking about. I think I know a little bit about it, you know, much more because you've been doing these deep dives, but AI, algorithm, seem like two separate things, but yet they can cross over as well. Can you kind of
Right.
explain the relationship there?
Well, so just for folks, to know, AI just means artificial intelligence. And what does that mean? It means that you can create an environment where a computer can learn. And so they've created situations where they wanted, I don't know, a computer or a robot to put a ball through a hoop. And in the beginning, it really can't do it. And then it gets closer, and then it gets closer. And the closer the iterations are, the easier it is, and it gets to the point where that computer can throw that ball through that hoop anywhere on the court at any point. And so, this is artificial intelligence is iterative, and what that means is repeated um, uh, attempts, which the computer adjusts for every time until they get it right. And nowadays, it's easy to just get on your phone and ask a computer a question, and they'll give you back an answer. But all they're really doing is combing the content that is on the computer out there in the internet, and they'll feed it back to you. Now, an algorithm is operated through a computing system, but it doesn't need to be. An algorithm all on its own is just a set of equations, which if you input at one point, there'll be the series of operations on the inputs that will lead you to an output. And so that's what an algorithm is, So so computers use algorithms, computer generated algorithms. They can operate very fast in the blink of an eye, way faster than a human being can calculate something. And this is what is used to create artificial intelligence. So that's sort of how it works. Um, but the word algorithm is a very old word. It's actually named after a person who first conceived of an algorithm, but this hundreds of years ago. But now it's just a series of, operations that work on an input that lead to another output. And so that's kind of what it is. It's just it's something that is a part of computing today. It's a legitimate thing. It's not a bad thing. It's very useful, and that it's how you can put information raw information into a computer and come out with what your tax liability might be, right? It's what's helping you keep up with your budget. And there's AI use of algorithms, which can be very beneficial. But what we're talking about now is how social media platforms can use these products to addict children, maximize time spent on the platform. And this is really harmful to young people whose brains are still developing and who are still learning how to deal with impulse control. So for example, social media apps using algorithms, using AI, uh, will will send notification prompts, which pop up every time, uh, all the time to try to get users to open them and to see what's going on and to keep their attention, and really distract kids from everything from homework to outdoor activities, things like that. And the more people that click on or focus on this thing, the more people, the more it will show. The computer will show to people because it's popular, because what it's in search of is eyeballs, attention, time. And the results are clear. Kids are getting less sleep, socializing less in person, feeling worse about themselves, and even sometimes tragic outcomes.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, we have to arm ourselves with this information and understand at its very core what it is if we want to help our kids. And so I think for a lot of parents, that's where we're at a huge disadvantage because we're still trying to understand it. Can I ask you about the regulations and what is it that you are hoping for and looking for specifically here?
Well, before I jump into that, I just want to say that we can do this. We can make positive use of AI, positive use of computer algorithms. We've done it. We've done it before. There was a time when kids we had toys that had lead in them. Well, we were able to ban that, weren't we? And we can do this. So let me just say what we're saying is that we believe that we need to ban design features that encourage greater usage for children beyond their desires, like those aggressive notifications or autoplay videos. We think we need to mandate aggressive privacy defaults to limit unwanted sharing of data and images. And we also believe we need to institute age limits for chatbots that can engage in sensitive or personal conversations. So these are some common sense measures that I think will protect our kids, and it's what we're hoping that the legislature will do.
Okay. Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison, we really appreciate your time and
Absolutely.
the ability to sort of let these things breathe and explain in depth what it is that you're trying to do here. So thanks again. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for the time. This is really important. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, back out here. So that's an example of kind of the things we try to do here and the interviews we try to bring you, because we can go a little bit more in depth. So we shared an email address with you earlier. We have a phone number, which I don't remember off the top of my head. But if you want to email us at allday@fox.com. Let us know who you want to hear from, what types of topics you want to learn more about, things that are happening in the news or just things that are important to you and where you live. Doesn't have to be here in the metro. It could be anywhere in Minnesota or beyond.